The criminal justice system has become a hot topic recently in our country, a politically charged topic, an emotional topic. And for a lot of people, they may have just tuned out, tired of hearing about it, tired of the discussions, tired of the fights. But as a Christian, we shouldn't turn off that discussion. We should redirect that discussion. We should reframe that discussion, not in terms of left versus right or Republican versus Democrat, but instead to frame it as Christians. And to ask ourselves, what does it mean to think about criminal justice as a Christian? The American justice system is remarkable in many ways. It is quite literally revolutionary. We fought a war over many of the principles that we now take for granted. So in the end, there's much to be grateful for with the American justice system, but there's also great reason for concern. We see a problem both in under-policing and at times over-prosecuting. To take the first, the under-policing, in the United States, only about 50% of murders are ever solved. And when you take serious crime as a whole, only a fraction of those crimes are ever solved. And so many neighbors are going unloved. But at the same time, we have at times an over-prosecution, a problem with convicting people who are innocent. Since the advent of forensic DNA technology in August of 1989, more than 3,280 people have been exonerated after having been convicted of crimes they did not commit, spending collectively more than 29,000 years in prison for somebody else's crime. None of that, again, is loving our neighbors as ourselves. But we also see another failure of process in a failure to provide lawyers to the poor so that they can navigate the process. In 1963, the Supreme Court ruled in a case of Gideon versus Wainwright that a lawyer was necessary if a poor person could not afford a defense lawyer. Studies have been done by the American Bar Association. In state after state, only about a third of the lawyers needed are being provided. So what does it mean to think about criminal justice as a Christian? Well, ultimately it means to think about criminal justice through the lens of love, through the lens of loving our neighbor as ourselves, the most repeated command in all of Scripture. The challenge in the criminal justice system is that we have two neighbors in conflict. Our obligation to love both of those neighbors, the criminally accused and the criminally victimized, comes down to an obligation to judge their case accurately. So if accuracy is the core of biblical justice, the question is, how do we achieve that accuracy? We're not mind readers, we don't have time machines, we're not clairvoyant, and yet we're asked to judge an event that happened in the past that we weren't present for. And so for us as fallible human beings, as finite human beings, accuracy depends on a process, a fair process, what we call in the American justice system due process. A process that's designed to yield accurate outcomes. And yet accuracy insists that we judge a case based on the facts, not based on which tribe either the victim or the perpetrator fits into. And so process must be paired with impartiality in order to ensure accuracy. We also must speak accurately not only about what wrong was done, but how wrong that wrong was. What we want to do is speak truthfully, speak accurately about who did the wrong and what wrong they did, and about how serious that wrong is. We think of that as proportionality. And all of this, of course, depends on government actors who are themselves striving for accuracy, which is not a given in a fallen world. And so we need to restrain even those who are given authority and speak accurately when they use that authority unjustly. When people hear this, a lot of folks are left wondering, okay, the system has some flaws, but what can I, just an average citizen, do about any of this? As a Christian, first of all, I think we should begin by thinking accurately, thinking rightly about the system. We know from Romans, for example, that being a Christian, growing in sanctification, is changing our minds, thinking differently than other people think about things, thinking about justice not from an ideological perspective of the left or the right, but coming to it as a Christian and saying, what does the Bible demand of me when I think about justice? And then when I think rightly about it, I can speak better about it. I can speak more accurately to my children. We can speak as people committed to a fair process. We can speak biblically about proportional punishment. And then having thought better and speaking better, we can also vote better as believers. And by this, I mean not only voting in elections, which is certainly the case, but I can also vote better as a juror. Everything we've discussed here is a way to love our neighbors as ourselves. We want to be accurate, but ultimately we are not promised perfect justice in this life. Every example of justice we see points us to the day of ultimate justice. And every injustice we see in this life makes us long for that ultimate day of justice. We can confess as Christians that our hope is not in this life, but our hope is in the truth that He will come again in glory, and His kingdom will have no end.